Namaste everyone. Welcome to Sarb Akal YouTube channel. This is Suneetha Alokam. Today we will be meeting our guest artist, Mrs. Malavika Venkatsubbaiah, an accomplished Bharatnatyam dancer and artistic director for Natyam Dance Academy. Malavika is trained in Bharatnatyam in Bangalore, India and moved to Canada in 2006. Since then, she's been giving various performances in UK, North America and back home. She has won many accolades for her exquisite abhinaya and precise nirtya. She is also recipient of prestigious awards like Natya Sarathi and Nitya Ratna from India. Her artistic pursuits are well recognized in Canada as well, for which she is honored with Calgary Arts and Development Individual Artist Award and Cultural Diversity Arts Award from Edmonton Arts Council. Please join me to welcome Mrs. Malavika Venkatsubbaiah. Hi Malavika, very glad to have you here today with us.
Thank you, Suneetha, and thanks to Sarb for having me over tonight.
So it must have been quite a journey from learning in India, performing there, and moving to Canada, carving a niche for yourself here.
It has. Because it's very different here. I had all my training and my performances in Bangalore until I moved here. And I had to come here and start from ground zero, from the scratch.
I know.
So that definitely was a big change. But I must say it has been a pleasant journey so far. It gave me a lot more opportunities to grow as an artist on my own, which probably would have been different or might have happened at a different stage of time when if I was there. So it's been a pleasant experience.
Great. So have you always wanted to have a career in dance, whether it was in India or abroad?
Well, coming to that, if I say yes, I would be wrong because my academic qualification is something way different from dance.
Yeah, usually it's like that.
Yes, I have a background in life sciences, so no. And I started learning when I was a kid, so at that point, it was just the environment was more for dance and music. It was all around me. So there was not like I didn't grow up within that environment. I come from a very heavily arts background within the family.
Oh, wow.
My parents are both professional theater artists, so is my sister. So I would call it a parallel profession because, yes, they also have qualifications in other things and they did art in parallel to it, but nevertheless very serious about it. So it's definitely not a hobby or anything.
Right.
And yeah, within the extended family too, I have a lot of cousins who are professional dancers, musicians, and artists.
Oh, okay.
So yes, it was just a norm for me to be introduced to the arts. And I guess my interests took over and I continued further.
Awesome. You are trained under eminent guru, Dr. Lalita Srinivasan. So could you tell us how her training and your passion has helped you to evolve into a finesse artist?
Yes, she plays a huge role in what I am today, like any guru for that matter.
Right.
She is a very disciplined artist, and she has transferred that discipline to her students. Being an artist is your talent and skill is just half of it. For you to become an artist, it's all these things come into the picture: the discipline, the rigor, the approach to art, the humility, and the professional work ethics. She is very particular about all these things and she's passed it on to her students. So am I. I'm very particular about, I hold all this in very high regard. Professionalism, work ethics, and your standard quality of your art. So there is no second chance to it. There's nothing else but the best that we have to give. So her rigor definitely has a lot of influence, and that is how it was at home with other artists as well. So having grown up in that environment, and I'm very thankful for that, because that is what has allowed us to keep the quality of art that we can.
Yeah, like Guru Parampara, continuous,
Yes,
right?
Guru Shishya Parampara. A guru is one who kind of takes off your ignorance. It's not just a teacher who teaches you something.
And it's
So,
just passively imparted to the
yes,
students, and it's
yes.
there.
And even here, I strive to do that. And some people might find that old school, but sorry, that's the way it is.
So you are trained in Mysore style Bharatnatyam?
Yes, I'm trained in Mysore Bani of Bharatanatyam. It originates around the Mysore region, Karnataka region, current day Karnataka region in India. And this Mysore Bani is unique because the Mysore royalty gave a lot of patronage, the Wadeyars gave a lot of patronage to the art, and they themselves were artists, poets, singers, dancers, the royalty. So they have nurtured it very well, and the royal court artists had to be, I mean, there was no exception. There were stalwarts sitting there, right? So you couldn't miss a thing. You had to know your art in and out. And that is to a very large extent kind of transferred in her lineage. My guru's guru is Dr. K. Venkatlakshamma, who was the royal Rajanartaki of the warriors' court for quite some
So
time.
it really goes back a
It
long
does.
way.
It does go back a long way. And because of all this scholarliness, they didn't have the pomp and show of just being, presenting fast numbers or presenting angular movements. You had to know the literature in and out because anybody could pick and ask you, do you know what you're doing? And you had to have an answer at that point.
Right.
So they laid a lot of emphasis on the sophisticated abhinaya, not just the nritta aspect of it. So that is what is unique to the Mysore Bani. And that is the flavor of it. And we try to keep up to it.
Wow. You are also trained in Indian folk dances and proficient in that. Are you trained separately for that, or is it related to Bharatanatyam in any way?
See, Bharatanatyam is one of the classical dance forms of India. And whatever is categorized as classical dance form has evolved to be a lot more sophisticated, codified art form. The folk art forms are a little more rustic. So you won't have a very codified movement for the folk art forms, but probably everything started off from there, from the folklore, right? Yeah. Way before all these things sophisticated and evolved into what they are. So kind of rhythm plays a role. It's transferred, and yeah, we have Carnatic music that we use in Bharatanatyam, which has evolved again very much. But at the same time, it kind of started from folklore, and then it's taken various forms now. So I did train separately for folk dances. I trained at Nartan Academy of Dance and Music in Bangalore, and I was a part of their folk repertory for a long time. But my training in Bharatanatyam started much before that, and I'm sure it lent itself towards that.
Okay. So after Bharatanatyam, you kind of learned folk as well, along with it.
Yes, along with it. But my training started with Bharatanatyam.
So after moving to Canada, you started Natyam Dance Academy, initially in Edmonton. It's been about 2 decades now. And you have started teaching in Calgary as well. How do you manage your time teaching in both the cities and performing and choreographing?
It is a challenge. I wouldn't say it isn't. But at the same time, I have been able to do it. It's worked out. I just have to plan things quite a bit if I'm traveling between 2 cities and managing it. So, and there is definitely a lot of support and help from family here, without which I couldn't have done it at all. Both my kids and husband support to a huge extent. That's so, great. And they're also into the art, so I think they understand what it takes. Right. To understand an artist's life. It's not that easy, and it's mainly because of that that I'm able to do it, and I take my art quite seriously, so there's no compromise there. Right. So
nice. So when you were learning in India, you were living in the culture, and whereas for students here, part of the learning is getting experiencing the culture or learning the culture. So how do you approach this aspect with your students?
Yes, it definitely is different because there you grow in the same environment. You don't have to make an extra effort to know
Right.
about the basics of the art and be it the stories that it's spun around and things like that. But here, when kids grow, to be honest, we expect them to fit in here. We expect them to fit in there. That's
Right.
a lot on them.
Yes.
So we have to change our approach to it, and it's just taking a step back. So we cannot assume that they know everything about it. It's our duty as teachers and gurus to introduce them to it, to make them aware of it, and then take it from there. So that approach, that extra step has to happen, but it is very necessary.
Yes.
Otherwise, we cannot expect them to take it, and it probably won't sustain
Yes.
if they don't relate to what they're
Yeah,
doing.
they have to connect to it.
Yeah,
and
they
then,
will
yes.
disconnect it at some point, and it will just go away. So it's very important that any work that you take, it's not just enough to learn to dance. You need to know the music behind it, the raga, tala, the poetry, where it came from, the meaning of each and every lyrics, and then relate it to how you would convey or you would portray it. That is when it's going to sustain.
For sure. So one of the striking aspects of your profile is you've been striving to take this art form to a bigger platform, not just to Indian diaspora, but to Westerners as well. And you have collaborated extensively with various artists. Could you give some insights into that, how you collaborate, but then still keep the basic structure of Bharatnatyam intact?
See, I'm practicing this art form here. So if I cannot make it accessible to the audience here, then it's gone.
Yeah.
I cannot just keep on doing it to someone else or just for myself. Dance, especially, is a two-way communication. You need the artist to create it, and you need the audience to appreciate it. That's only when it's going to survive. We call that as rasotpatti in Indian terms, which is bringing out the essence of what you're doing in the audience. Only then they're going to relate to it, they're going to stay with you, they're going to stay connected, and that is when the art is going to survive. So I feel collaborating is important in many different levels. As an artist, I need to challenge myself. That healthy challenge is very important. And at the same time, the audience need to be connected to what I'm doing. I don't like it when people term our classical arts as ancient art form, as once it takes the name of being exotic, it just stays there. It's like, and you can't even touch it. It's in fantasy. That is wrong. We need to make it relevant to people here. So if it was just ancient and it didn't evolve through times, it wouldn't have survived
if it's only for
today.
defined sector of people, then
It wouldn't have survived today. I mean, these art forms go back to a couple of thousand years. We trace it back to Natya Shastra and all that, right? That's a whole different story. I don't want to go into it right now. But it definitely has evolved. But the boundaries that were laid out initially are very important because that is like the grammar. If you take away the grammar and say you're going to talk a language, you don't know what you're going to end up with, right? It's going to be so diluted that it doesn't make any sense at all at that point. So it is very important to know the boundaries, know where it came from, but at the same time, evolve, bring new things. As artists, we have the responsibility. There are two different things. One is keeping up what came out traditionally, because the fact that it stayed on for so long, there is some sense into it. It's just not something that isn't make any sense at all, right? And it has to evolve for it to sustain. It has to evolve for it to continue. If we did the same old thing that was done, I don't know, maybe 200 years ago, people would have gotten bored. They wouldn't want Bharatanatyam anymore, or any dance form for that matter. So it has to evolve. Every artist has to contribute their individual thinking, thought process, and their skill into it. That is when art is going to survive and sustain. So that's why I find the need to collaborate, be it with different genres or anything. I mean, I've collaborated recently with, I did a production called Virahi Chitra. It was the story of Chitrangada as we interpreted it. I collaborated with musician Dr. Deepak Paramashivan, who is a very versatile artist. We used Rabindra Sangeet because we wanted to keep the essence of it, and I portrayed Bharatnatyam because that's what I'm trained in, and that's what my art form is. And at the same time, it was done for a mainstream audience. So they don't know who Chitrangada is or what I'm trying to say, but at the same time, bring out the essence of what I'm trying to say there, not be Chitrangada or Arjuna, whoever it is. It's important. And we used Western classical piano, jazz piano.
Oh, wow.
So it is important to, there's a lot to learn, feed off from each other. So collaboration definitely sustains arts better.
Awesome, perfect. So what aspects of Bharatanatyam you think the Westerners appreciate the most? Is it the music or the precise technique, or is it the emotive power of the dance?
I think I cannot pinpoint to any one aspect because they do look into everything that we have as a whole. They might not relate to much of the intricate abhinaya that we are doing, but as actors, it's kind of our responsibility to communicate. That's where, again, the rasotpatti comes into factor. So they definitely do appreciate the technical, pure dance aspect of it because it's very visual, right? And music for sure catches everybody. So, and I have, in my experience, I have seen a lot of people come back and wanting to know what we conveyed. And even if we don't give an explanation of any sort, they do understand. They do decipher some parts of it. But if you want them to decipher exactly what you're saying, then maybe they need a little bit of a background. But all these aspects are important, and we, just because they're mainstream audiences here, we shouldn't be taking anything for granted. They will still value your art and look at it as a whole thing, and it's our duty to give them the best.
You have conducted many workshops at schools related to dance. So was it challenging to reach out to the kids here, or how was that experience?
The workshops that I conducted mainly were in performing arts schools. So the students already came from a background of performing arts, definitely not necessarily South Asian dance. But being with that background, they were keen to pick on aspects that they were looking for. One was they wanted to study similarity between jazz and Bharatanatyam and the physical movement. Another was theater students, where I kind of they wanted to see how we enact, how we emote, what are the methodologies that we use and why we use those. So it was very interesting. Yes, I had to break it down for them in a different way, but they absorbed it. It was very challenging and interesting for me as well. I got to learn a lot from them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So, do you have any artistic goals to reach?
Well, yes, I do. If you don't have any goals, you're kind of doomed. So, yeah, no, I just, main thing is I want this art to reach the mainstream audience in the same force that any other art form here has taken, be it ballet or jazz or whatever it is. It does take time, yes. But as artists, it's our responsibility, as I said, to make it relevant to the audience here and the current times more than anything. If you just stick on to the same old thing and don't draw relevance to the current day, then people cannot relate to it, and that's when it's going to fade away slowly. So yes, definitely I would like to see our South Asian arts take a bigger platform on the mainstream art scene here. And there are a lot of artists working towards that. And hopefully I'm contributing something towards that.
Yeah, let's hope so. Yep,
So-
for sure. So any helpful suggestions or messages for young learners?
Well, yes, I do. the basic, I'm sure every artist would have said this, there's no shortcut to learning, especially these classical art forms. I mean, they take a different kind of approach. You have to be patient and you have to go through the process. The process that has been drawn out is very well thought of. People haven't done it for nothing. So, as I said, relating to the current day, I find this with my students even at times. They don't relate to many concepts that some traditional poetry is portraying. And I tell them, I understand, I totally understand that times have changed, and that's okay. But go through that process because that offers a lot of learning for you. Once you understand that, yes, give your own individuality into your dancing. That is very important, and my guru always stressed on it. She was like, no two people can dance alike because they're two different people. And that should not be the case. You don't want to be just a carbon copy, replica of somebody, right? So I insist that also in my students. I give them that kind of freedom. I got the same freedom, and I very much value that. So be patient and pursue. This art has a different approach to learning it, and go through it, and don't be in a rush to, I don't know, branch off on your own or start teaching or something like that. Make sure you have a firm grounding first before you take off into that. Unfortunately, I see that happen a lot nowadays, and it's very disheartening. But hopefully the youngsters realize that, and that they need to invest a little more time and then take it off.
Such a beautiful message.
Otherwise, the art is going to be diluted, and we don't want that.
Definitely not. So, Malavika, through your achievements, you have shown what passion and dedication is like. Thank you so much for being with us today, sharing your experiences and valuable knowledge with us. We wish you all the very best for all your future presentations. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Suneetha, and thank you, Sarb. Akal.